It was a tranquil afternoon in Sacramento when Calvin's life changed forever. He was only 16 years old when he received the devastating news. His parents had passed away in a car accident. The easy smile and sparkle in Calvin's eyes, so common in the young boy, seemed to disappear in that moment. His world, once filled with the security and love of a happy family, suddenly became a terrifying void. In the following days, while the shock was still fresh, the possibility of having to live in a shelter loomed over him like a dark cloud. Then hope came in the form of his neighbor, Isabel, a lady with a kind expression and welcoming eyes who was an intimate friend of his mother. Isabel, who always saw Calvin as a second son, came to him with a proposal. "Calvin," she said, "I knew your parents for a long time. They were wonderful people, just like you. I can't replace them, but I would like to offer my home to you. I would like to take care of you until you can take care of yourself." Calvin, in a state of emotional numbness, looked at her for a long moment before responding. I appreciate it, Isabel," he said, his voice choked. "I don't know how to thank you." And so, with a firm handshake and a promise to take care of each other, Calvin and Isabel sealed the deal. Amidst the pain and grief, they became a family, albeit an unlikely one. Calvin moved into Isabel's cozy apartment, and she, in turn, took guardianship of him, promising herself that she would do everything in her power to protect him. The transition wasn't easy for either of them. Calvin still felt the void of losing his parents, and Isabel did her best to comfort him, never trying to fill their place. But with time, love, patience, and understanding, they created a new routine. Calvin, still with an open wound in his heart, began to understand that even in the midst of the greatest storm, there's always a safe harbor. And Isabel, with her kindness and unconditional love, became that harbor for him. From a young age, Calvin had always been extremely focused and determined, a quality that didn't go unnoticed by Isabel. When she saw him immersed in his books and notebooks, she would always comment, "I see the same dedication in your eyes that your mother had, Calvin. You will go far, I'm sure of it." She was right. Calvin studied diligently throughout high school, and his efforts paid off. He secured a coveted scholarship to study economics at the University of Sacramento. On the day the acceptance letter arrived, Calvin and Isabel cried tears of joy and pride together. "This one's for you, Mom and Dad," Calvin whispered, looking at the photo of his parents on his bedside table. College was an even greater challenge. The workload was intense, and the pace was fast, but Calvin was determined. In his rare moments of leisure, he found himself pondering how life could have been different if his parents were there to witness his progress. "They would be so proud of you, Calvin," Isabel would always assure him. Upon graduating, Calvin's determination finally bore fruit. He landed a job in the finance department of the renowned Dawson Technology, one of the most influential corporations in the tech field. He vividly remembers the day he received the job offer, his mind flooded with conflicting emotions, satisfaction for the achievement, sadness for his parents' absence, but above all, a strong desire to dive headfirst into his career and create a better life for himself. On his first day at Dawson Technology, he stepped into the imposing glass and steel skyscraper, dressed in his finest suit and carrying the confidence of someone who had overcome so many adversities. Sitting at his new desk, he made a promise to himself. "I will strive harder than ever before. I will climb this mountain to the top. This is just the beginning." And with that determination etched in his heart, Calvin embarked on the journey to build the life he had always dreamed of, honoring the memory of his parents every step of the way. As months went by, Calvin quickly gained recognition at Dawson Technology. His hard work and dedication soon paid off. He was promoted to a managerial position, securing a leadership role within the company. "You have an incredible leadership ability, Calvin," Mr. Dawson, the CEO of the company, said while announcing his promotion. "We are proud to have you as part of our team. I'm sure you will accomplish great things here." Now a successful manager, Calvin had finally achieved the financial independence he had always sought. He bought his first car, a sports model, and felt a true sense of accomplishment whenever he hit the road. "I'm driving my own path now," he murmured to himself, a smile spreading across his face. Even with all he had achieved, there was a part of Calvin's past that still held him back, his parents' old apartment. It was a piece of his heart, but also a constant reminder of pain and loss. He decided it was time to move on. "It's not that I want to forget them, Isabel," he explained to his neighbor in an emotional conversation. "But I think we need to move forward. This place, it still hurts." With tears in her eyes, Isabel agreed. "They would have wanted this, Calvin. Your father and mother always wanted you to find your own path." Thus, he sold the old apartment and bought a new, even better one, a place that reflected the man he had become, independent, successful, and ready to face any challenge life had in store for him. As he looked out the window of his new apartment at the city he had always called home, Calvin felt a mix of emotions. There was a twinge of sadness, of course, but also a profound sense of achievement. "I made it, Mom, Dad," he whispered to the wind. "I'm on the path to success." And for the first time in a long while, he felt certain of it. Despite his flourishing career, Calvin's love life was an icy desert, devoid of any spark of passion. His co-workers often referred to him as the man with a heart of ice. This nickname, which spread throughout Dawson Technology, highlighted just how emotionally unapproachable Calvin remained. "You won't believe it, but Calvin turned down another date invitation," one of his colleagues said in a casual conversation during lunch. "Seriously," replied another, laughing. "This guy is an enigma, intelligent, successful, attractive, but has no interest in relationships. He's the true man with a heart of ice." However, the reason for Calvin's emotional distance ran much deeper. His reluctance to get close to someone romantically was rooted in a deeply ingrained fear, the fear of failure. After his parents passed away, Calvin carried a tremendous fear of losing someone he loved again. He feared that any misstep in his life could lead him to the same heart-wrenching pain he felt in the death of his parents. Therefore, he decided that the only way to avoid such mistakes was to focus all his energy on areas of his life that he could control, his studies and, later, his career. "I'm not ready, Steve," Calvin confided once to his college friend, who had become his closest confidant. "I'm so afraid of getting hurt again, of losing someone. I don't know if I could handle it." And so, Calvin put dreams of a romantic relationship, marriage, and family on the back burner. He was too busy building a successful career to allow himself to take risks in love, even if it meant being known as the man with a heart of ice. Amidst the icy glow that marked his personality, Calvin displayed a certain ineptitude in dealing with the female universe. It wasn't for lack of opportunities, but he seemed lost, uncertain about how to interact with women in a romantic way. Co-workers observed this peculiarity and often made jokes about it. "Calvin, you know that to flirt with a woman, you need more than a sales chart and a PowerPoint presentation, right?" Mike, one of the more playful colleagues, commented, eliciting laughter from the others. Calvin smiled awkwardly but didn't respond. His true confidant, however, was his friend Steve. Friends since college, Steve knew Calvin better than anyone and understood the depth of the fear that prevented him from emotionally investing in relationships. "Calvin," Steve said one evening in a conversation after work, "I've known you since college, and I've always seen you treat life as if it were one big equation to be solved: studies, work, success. You've achieved things that many guys your age only dream of. But you've never allowed yourself to experience romance. I've never seen you share your life with someone. It hurts to see you like this, so alone." Calvin just sighed, his eyes revealing the internal conflict. "I know, Steve," he replied, with a latent sadness in his voice. "But I'm so afraid to open up, to get involved with someone and end up hurt. Steve's words echoed in Calvin's mind, but his fears still formed an insurmountable barrier. He longed for companionship, but feared the pain that love could bring. On any given day, during a high-level meeting with top executives at Dawson Technology, Calvin, with trembling hands, accidentally spilled coffee on his elegant dark suit. The dark liquid began to spread across the fine wool, threatening to leave an indelible stain. Desperate, he promptly stood up, muttering an apology, and hurriedly headed towards the pantry, fearing the stain would spread further. That's when an unexpected figure crossed his path. A young woman in a cleaning uniform was retrieving some supplies from the cabinet when she noticed the look of panic on Calvin's face. Swiftly, she set her things aside and walked over to him. "Let me help with that," she said gently as she retrieved a stain remover spray from the cabinet. Calvin, surprised, looked at her. He had never noticed the young woman before. "Are you new here?" he asked, observing her agile and efficient work on the stain. "Oh, not exactly," she replied with a smile. "I used to work on another floor, but I just got transferred." With quick and confident movements, the young woman scrubbed the stained area, and to Calvin's relief, the stain began to fade. "There you go," she announced. "You can go back to your meeting now." Impressed by how swiftly she had handled the situation, Calvin expressed his gratitude before returning to the meeting room, the coffee stain now a mere ghost on his suit fabric. The young janitor had saved his day, and a strange sense of curiosity started to form within him. As the clock struck the end of the workday, Calvin prepared to leave. The twilight hues colored the glass corridors of the company. In that moment, he spotted the young janitor once again, walking out with her bag and work uniform. This time, Calvin made a point to approach her. "Hey," he said with a shy smile on his face. "I wanted to thank you again for your help earlier." She returned the smile and casually replied, "Oh, it was nothing. I've been in similar situations before. I've learned how to get rid of that kind of sting through trial and error." There was something about the simplicity and charm of that woman that sparked Calvin's interest. His usually calculated heart did something unexpected. So he began hesitatingly, "There's a park across the street from the building, and I usually grab ice cream there sometimes. Would you like to join me?" The proposal came out so spontaneous and unexpected that it surprised even him. Calvin had never made an invitation like that before, but something about that woman compelled him to take this step. Sitting on a weathered wooden bench, Calvin and Doris watched children play in the park while savoring their ice creams. The trees swayed gently with the summer breeze, and the laughter of children filled the air with joy. Doris, her uniform replaced with a light blouse and jean skirt, seemed more relaxed, more herself. She introduced herself formally with a genuine smile on her face. "Nice to meet you, Calvin. I'm Doris." So you're Doris," he replied, returning the smile. "I'm sort of a jack of all trades at the company," she began to explain. "I serve coffee, clean the rooms, keep things in order. It's a humble job, but I enjoy it." Impressed by Doris's honesty and humility, Calvin began to share about his work as well, talking about his responsibilities as a manager at Dawson Technology, his goals, and challenges. There was an immediate connection between them, an unusual harmony, with each genuinely interested in the other's life. The conversation flowed as if they were old friends, with casual dialogue peppered with laughter. As different as their lives were, their simple and authentic ways of expressing themselves created an atmosphere of mutual understanding that Calvin had rarely experienced amidst the rigidity of the office buildings surrounding the park. An unlikely friendship blossomed between Calvin and Doris. Day after day, as the afternoon gave way to evening, they would meet on the same wooden bench to dive into hours of captivating conversation. Doris was like a ray of sunshine, her overflowing joy and playful nature acting as a key to unlock a side of life that Calvin didn't know existed. She had no fear of letting out a loud laugh or teasing him, and her smile was so radiant that it was almost tangible. Calvin, "You're so serious," Doris exclaimed once, tilting her head and studying him with a mischievous smile. "It's like you're always solving some complicated company problem in your mind. You need to loosen up a bit." Calvin looked at her, surprised, and then burst into laughter. "Maybe you're right, Doris. I think I forgot what it's like to live outside of work." The daily park meetings were like a breath of fresh air for Calvin, serving to break the monotony of his work-focused routine. And with every laugh they shared, every story told, Calvin felt a part of his old rigidity dissolve, making way for a new way of appreciating life and its everyday wonders. On a particularly golden afternoon, sunlight shone through the leaves of the park trees, making everything seem bathed in gold. Calvin and Doris sat on their usual bench, their gazes lost in the distance. A comfortable silence settled between them, interrupted only by the occasional chirping of a bird or distant laughter of playing children. Calvin turned to look at Doris, the sunlight reflecting off her hair, giving it a charming glow. A wave of courage washed over him. He held her hand, drawing her attention. Doris looked at him, her eyes displaying a calm curiosity. "Doris," Calvin began hesitantly. He leaned forward, his eyes locked onto hers, his breath caught as he kissed her. It was a gentle kiss, a silent promise. When they pulled apart, he felt like the world had stopped. "Doris," he said, his voice firmer now, "I know this may seem strange, but would you like to be my girlfriend?" Doris appeared surprised. She pulled back slightly, her eyes searching his. "Calvin, are you sure? I mean, you're a manager, and I'm just a janitor." Calvin took her hand again, gently squeezing it. "Doris, to me, you're much more than just a janitor. You're the woman who showed me that life doesn't have to be complicated, that it can be full of joy and simplicity. I don't care what others may think. What matters to me is how I feel when I'm with you." The smile that lit up Doris's face was all Calvin needed to see to know he had made the right choice. Weeks flew by as Calvin and Doris deepened their relationship. Each encounter brought them closer. One day, while sharing a picnic in the park, Doris, with a subtly nervous look on her face, finally asked, "Calvin, would you like to meet my parents?" Calvin nearly choked on the orange juice he was drinking. The invitation, though a natural progression in their relationship, caught him off guard. "Ah, sure, Doris. I would love to meet your parents," he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. A huge smile lit up Doris's face, dissipating the shadow of nervousness that was there. "Great," she exclaimed, her tone buoyant. Then, realizing Calvin's anxious expression, she placed her hand on his shoulder, giving him a reassuring look. "Relax, Calvin," she said softly, laughing. "They're not going to interrogate you, you know? My dad is an avid fisherman, and my mom is addicted to cooking shows. They're simple people like us. Everything will be fine." Doris's laughter was contagious, and Calvin found himself laughing along with her, though he still felt a tremor of anxiety. Doris's confidence in her parents helped him feel more at ease. "All right, then. I'm looking forward to meeting them." On the night of the dinner, Calvin's anxiety was almost palpable. In his mind, he imagined Doris's family as humble and simple, given her position in the company. Thinking of not intimidating them with his own position, he chose a dark gray sweater and faded jeans to wear, a modest attire to match what he believed to be a humble environment. Setting aside the tension, he was about to grab the keys to his car when his phone vibrated. It was a message from Doris. "Don't worry about driving, my love. I'll send a taxi to pick you up. Consider it one of my pranks." The final signature, the winking emoji, was classic Doris. Though confused, Calvin enjoyed Doris's playful spirit. "I must admit you're full of surprises," he sent back, leaving his keys on the entryway table and waiting for the taxi. When the taxi finally arrived, the sun had already set, and the city was illuminated by millions of twinkling lights. As they approached the destination, Calvin noticed that the narrow streets and row houses were giving way to wider, imposing avenues lined with luxurious mansions. His heart raced. "This must be a mistake," he murmured to himself, nervously checking the address on his phone. Sensing his passenger's concern, the taxi driver cast a curious look through the rearview mirror. "Sir, are you sure this is the correct address?" he asked, and Calvin nodded, though his face displayed uncertainty. Perhaps Doris's family works in one of these mansions, Calvin thought, trying to calm his nerves. Amidst the surprise of the situation, the taxi came to a gentle stop in front of a truly imposing mansion with neoclassical architecture, sturdy columns adorning the facade, and a vast, meticulously manicured green garden. Calvin swallowed hard. A mix of surprise and confusion filled his eyes. Then, Doris appeared, a dazzling vision enhanced by the soft lighting emanating from the mansion. She was dressed in a stunning gown that captured the light of the stars, her face delicately made up, her smile brighter than ever. With his heart pounding at an alarming rate, Calvin nearly choked out the words, "Doris, I think we really should leave." He stammered, looking around. The homeowners might not appreciate it. Doris, holding back laughter, asked, "Why? Maybe they don't like their staff being in the garden?" He replied, his eyes scanning the meticulous gardens as if expecting an angry butler to appear at any moment. Doris laughed out loud now. She linked her arm with his and led him inside the mansion. Calvin followed, nervous, through a grand entrance hall to an extravagantly luxurious living room. Stopping in the middle of the room, he turned to Doris, confusion plastered on his face. "Doris, I think we really should leave," he stammered, looking around. "I don't think this is the right place." But before Doris could respond, a melodious voice echoed from the top of the staircase. "Daughter, has your boyfriend arrived?" An elegant lady descended the stairs with grace and dignity, appearing to be the owner of the house. Calvin's mind started spinning, unable to comprehend what was happening. And then, to his utter disbelief, another figure emerged from the shadows into the bright light of the room. A middle-aged man, a familiar face, greeted Calvin with a warm and familiar smile. "Good evening, young man," he said. It was none other than Henry Dawson himself, the legendary entrepreneur and founder of Dawson Technology, the company where Calvin had dedicated so many years of his life. The final surprise left Calvin completely speechless. What would your reaction be in Calvin's place? Share your opinion in the comments. A veil of dizziness enveloped Calvin as the realization hit him. The world seemed to spin as deafening silence filled the luxurious room. He felt like a supporting actor in a play, betrayed by the script. With a sway, he stepped back, his voice stuck in his throat, unable to articulate a single word. He turned abruptly and ran towards the exit, his footsteps echoing through the majestic entrance hall. Outside the mansion, under the harsh streetlights, he hailed a taxi with frantic gestures. The shock was so immense, so overwhelming that tears refused to come, replaced by a cold and numbing emptiness. How was this possible? His lovely Doris, the woman he shared laughter and stories with in the park, was actually the heiress of an empire, where he was just a small cog. His mind filled with questions, with suspicions. Was she merely playing him for a fool, making him a clown in her own circus? The one time he had allowed himself a glimpse of happiness, of love, now seemed to be the source of his greatest humiliation, of his deepest pain. With a heavy heart, he sank into the back seat of the taxi, the city lights flickering into a blur as he distanced himself from the mansion, from the life he thought he knew, from the woman he believed he loved. As he crossed the threshold of his apartment door, Calvin felt the cold wall against his back. Tears welled up in his eyes, streaming down his face as the reality of the deception unfolded in its entirety. Everything seemed to crumble as if a house of cards had been toppled by a ruthless gust of fate. Suddenly, insistent knocks echoed through the stillness of his home, each one feeling like a dagger piercing his already fragile heart. Doris's voice penetrated through the wood, desperate. "Calvin, I know I owe you an explanation. Please, I thought you would like the surprise." He resisted, his trembling fingers tightly gripping the doorknob, but the knocks grew more urgent. The fear of drawing attention from the neighbors prompted his action. With a heavy sigh, he turned the doorknob and opened the door, not allowing her to enter. He positioned himself between the door and the hallway, his eyes filled with accusation. "I trusted you, Doris," his voice choked, his chest tight. "I fell in love with a cleaning lady, not the daughter of the company owner. Did you really think I didn't deserve the truth, that I didn't deserve trust?" The words came out with sharp bitterness, carrying all the pain and betrayal he felt. "You need to leave, Doris," his voice crumbled. "I don't want to see you anymore." And with that, he closed the door, ending the most painful chapter of his life. Doris paused for a moment before finally speaking, the sound of her words lingering in the tense air between them. "I will leave, Calvin," she affirmed, her voice firm but clearly marked by sadness. "But before I go, you need to know my truth." She began to tell her story, the words flowing like a calm yet deeply emotive river. "I am not rich, Calvin. My father is. For a long time, I enjoyed his fortune without thinking about the consequences. Resorts, parties, shopping, beauty salons. I lived in a world that revolved solely around myself." A sad sigh escaped her lips as the memory of a distant past haunted her eyes. "Until one day, coming home drunk from a nightclub, I caused an accident. My father paid the compensation for the victims, the bail, but he made me understand that if I wanted money, I had to work for it." Her eyes shone with newfound determination as she continued. "I chose to work as a cleaning lady to challenge him, to shame him. But something strange happened." Her face lit up slightly. "I started to enjoy getting to know ordinary people, forming bonds with the other cleaners, with the doorman, with people who lived far from luxury." Doris took a deep breath before locking eyes with Calvin, her gaze honest and open. "I learned so much, Calvin. When I met you, I was genuinely working. I wasn't pretending. And the love I feel for you, I never lied about that, never." Calvin, stunned by Doris's confession, looked at her with teary eyes, a whirlwind of emotions filling his heart. Sadness for the lie, anger for the betrayal, confusion about the whole situation. But amidst it all, there was a glimmer of understanding. He stood there, gazing at Doris as she spoke sincerely about her experiences and transformations. For the first time, he saw beyond the simple cleaning lady who had captured his heart. He saw a complex and imperfect woman who was trying to find her own path. Calvin paused, taking a deep breath before speaking. "Doris, this is a lot of information for me to absorb. I need some time to think." Doris, with tears in her eyes, nodded, understanding. "I just wanted you to know, Calvin," she said with a choked voice. "I wasn't pretending when I was with you. I genuinely care about you, regardless of money, status, anything. I wanted you to like me for me, not for my family, not for the money. But I understand that I made a mistake, and I'm truly sorry for that." She turned to leave, and Calvin, though hurt, felt a pang of sympathy. He caught her by the arm, preventing her from leaving. "Don't go just yet. I do need time, that's true. But I also want you to know that I liked you, the cleaning lady, Doris, because you're simple, honest, and real. You made my heart open up in a way I never thought possible. And now, knowing your story, well, it's still you, isn't it? You're still that Doris I met." Doris looked at him, her brown eyes filled with hope. "Yes, Calvin, I am." With that, he said, letting out a long sigh. "I guess we have some things to figure out, don't we?" And so, on that rainy and unexpected night, Calvin and Doris began to rebuild their relationship, now with more transparency and sincerity than ever before. They had to face many obstacles and challenges, but the love they had for each other was strong enough to overcome it all. In the end, Calvin learned that success isn't just measured by hard work and determination. It's also measured by the relationships we build and the love we give and receive. He learned to truly love, thanks to Doris, and ultimately, that's what matters most. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.